Okay. Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. And welcome to another coffee shop Wi-Fi episode. I wanted to talk about how life is an incredible opportunity. And in some sense, I thought of this statement which fascinated me. Is the meaning of life preparing for the unknown? And I think that this is a very unique statement, and I don't know why, but I feel it's going to heal some people, this episode. So, to talk about life, one has to plant the flag somewhere to even be able to speak about it. What can I say? Whoever you are, wherever you are, consciousness is gifted with content. So what it means is that whether you are in an inefficient country, in an efficient country, in an inefficient world, let me even say, we as human beings are, like, to some degree, we are sky divers, or a better, more mystical metaphor would be like we're raindrops, and it's raining in the ocean. Or I should say it's not raining in the ocean, it's raining on the ocean. But what it is, the reason I'm saying that is because we are like this individual conscious being that enters the collective system. It doesn't just need a sort of a cultivation of experience of its individualism, but that life is a collective opportunity. And something I realized, something that at some point I was very serious about, but then it made me laugh, was that human beings are born in this world. They seek knowledge, and the reason they seek knowledge is because they desire power, and the reason they desire power is because there's a force within every human being that it's like your soul wants to step out from your eyes into the real world. And it's this poetic Gnostic idea that there is a divine light within every consciousness, within every conscious being. And the purpose of true spiritualism is to release this light, right? So what it is that the earliest people, you can say, just mystics from around the world, they looked at the world and they're like, what is this? What do we do with this? And then oh man. What I'm trying to say, excuse me, to continue, what I'm trying to share with the viewers what made me laugh was that I realized that the human psychology from the moment it's born, because the biological system is a container, it's like we have a biological system containing a cognitive system, but the cognitive system has access to a psyche that allows it to move the body beyond the body. The meaning of life is we use what we have to comprehend better the nature of where we are. You know, there was a time in my life where I felt that, I took failure personally. Okay, when certain things, certain intentions did not, fruitfully activate, to me it was a sort of personal feeling. But the thing about being in a world is that you start off with a personalized dimension, with a personalized view of this earth. But then this personalization notices the impersonal. So what tends to happen is that we take what we have for granted and we seek something beyond what we are because we think that's the meaning of life, to be something we aren't. And for some beings, it could be, Michel Foucault, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something in these lines where he was saying, like, the meaning of life for him is to not be the same person as he started off with. Some people are trying to, like, the more you're raised in Eastern cultures, like, this is something I think it's universally known, that Eastern cultures have an honor for their ancestry, that Western culture, to some degree, it's not that it doesn't have it, but it forgets it, or doesn't stabilize it through comfort. What I mean by this is that if you're born in the eastern part of the world, your mentality on life is trying to not change yourself, trying to get the least changed in this world. And if you're in the West, the idea is to get the most changed, Let me tell you something that was a paradigm shift for me. When I was raised in a theocratical society, there was this concept of God, there was this concept of doing good and being a good person and going to heaven and all of this. And so to be a good person when you're young, it's like you have no life experience, so you think it's trying to maintain what you are as long as you can. But what we realize is that this world is here to not just change in front of us, but to change us with it. This is the biggest thing, And something they don't tell children. I mean, honestly, I wish if I had a time machine, I'd go back and I'd say to myself, it's like this. When you're younger, you take your inner life way more seriously than your outer life. When you get older, you suddenly realize the outer life is ambiguous. And you realize every human being is in some sense wearing a mask, and we're all acknowledging that we're all wearing masks, okay? This is the nature of just communication. Do you know? The reason human beings are seeking truth and they want to escape the simulation is because the nature of language creates us as a simulated being. So whoever you are, there's 8 billion human beings on this planet. And there's so many ideological systems for human beings that have transitioned. Who was it? I think it was Terence McKenna, where in one of his lectures he said the funniest thing ever. And he's like, if you want enlightenment or something, dead guys are way more safer, right? And he was saying that if you go to like a living guru, like nowadays, like most gurus are actually, it's like they're trying to be the mind of everybody. But what I'm trying to say is that, dear viewers, dear human beings in dear conscious creatures in this universal sector. The meaning of life is not that we should ignore knowledge, but we should understand that we are all headed towards the unknown. I honestly feel like a pilot. My consciousness feels like a pilot, and in some sense I am piloting my plane of existence to a destination. But the destination is unknown, and it's this weird thing about life where we're this known creature, living through the knowledge of its time and suddenly realizing that there's an unknown side to the coin of how manifestation is animate. Okay, what I'm saying, dear viewers, is that if life is going towards the unknown, if death is an unknown state, in some cultures, secular perspectives, death is the ending, but in you can say non-secular cultures, and this is something that blew my mind about mysticism and transcendentalism, is that from different parts of the world, in different cultures, they all considered that there was another dimension after death, right? They considered that there was another room after earth, and they called it, in Tibetan Buddhism, they called it Bardo, and in Islam, they called it the Barzakh, right? And other cultures, you can look it up, they had their term for it. Like, I don't know if people know this, but like when a person is cremated in Tibetan Buddhism for 40 days, like 40 Tibetan monks or something, they go beside the person's cremation and they start singing, chanting mantras that are guiding that lost soul in the Bardo, right? The nature of life, okay, is in some sense, to some degree, a part of it is performance oriented. When I ask myself, why am I a physical entity? I'm like, oh yeah, to be part of the physical world, right? So my existence is an activity, right? To me, the purpose of my existence is to do something, but the purpose of my experience is to realize that the mind will experience itself in an unknown state. And you know what's hilarious? When we are kids, when we don't have a name, a personality, a sort of individualized conscious psychology, the child is the unknown. It's so easy for children to be unknown beings. But for, the man who has journeyed for 50 years, how can he be anything else than his sins? It's as if, what are we choosing to identify, right? My biological body, sure, it's occupying a certain part of the space-time continuum, and I could be like, yeah, I'm just my body, but this body is not just the body. The body is a mind that is recording every moment of itself as itself. This is my theory personally, that our brains are so advanced that they are actually trying to be the world before they can be us. You know what it is? This might sound very hilarious, but I think what human consciousness is the symbiosis of two dimensions. It's not like we have a soul in a body. It's kind of like a spirit world and let's say a non-spirit world are interacting, right? And it's sort of like the yin-yang. What does that mean? That means in this side of the coin, everything is matter, and something that's not material is moving the matter. Something. Think of it like the yin-yang symbol, right? A bit of the yin is in the yang, a bit of the yang is in the yin, right? So imagine in one side of the coin, it's a completely physical manifestation, but there's a soul. There's a little bit of a, yin in the yang, right? So in a material world, just like the soul, a non-physical agent, and in a non-physical world, a physical agent, right? What does that mean? That means your soul in the spirit realm is matter, is a body. That means if eternal beings were wondering about their soul, their shape would be their, separation from one another. You see, we are very blessed. Every human being that's alive. Even if you who are listening to me, you're someone who's done fucked up shit on this planet. You've been a messed up person, violent, savage. You've contributed to the de-evolution of the species. It doesn't matter. Whoever you are, at some point you will realize that intelligence is an evolutionary opportunity to see something we have never seen before. And what we have never seen before is pretty much this approach where 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere are like, no way, where we are is unknown, where our consciousness is headed is unknown, and so there seems to be a sort of elemental theatrical performance for 100 years. And so what is the meaning? What is the meaning of a known temporary performance in an unknown world, right? And I will tell you, the meaning is in some sense, what is the potential and why is the potential observed? That means the thing about talent, I think personally, is that it's courage. Talent is courage, that's it. Intelligence is courage. And courage for what? Courage to see something you haven't seen before. Because what's the point of waking up every day and seeing the same thing, right? Like if somebody told me, Mr. Within, do you want to live in the same ideological system every day of your life when you wake up? And I'll be like, no. Why? And let me tell you why. You know, for me, what's the difference? Imagine somebody says, I'm a religious person, like I'm Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or whatever, right? Whatever religious, Hindu, whatever religious denomination the person has. And so you wake up every day in the same world. Great, right? But at the same time, even if somebody's not religious, the idea of the story of the world where we wake up every day, we try to keep it the same to the degree that we're saying what happened in our world, as if the idea of the world never changes, but what's in it is always changing. You know, I'm a kid who, you know, I'll share a personal story, something about myself. I think when I was like 7 years old or something, when I was really young. Okay, I remember, not 7 years old, when I was, I think when I was like 11, right? 10, 11. I have a twin brother. My father had played this film called Signs, like with Mel Gibson and whatnot, right? And I don't know, to me and my brother's 11-year-old mind, that was like a spooky kind of film, okay? So I remember me and my brother, we were scared and we couldn't sleep and we were like annoying my parents. And my mother, I remember I told my mother I'm scared of, like, you know, the darkness or whatever. And she said, say like God's name 7 times. Okay. And my mother is a very peaceful, kind person, you know. And so I remember I started every night 7 times saying God's name and then like really like relaxing my psyche and sleeping. You know, but what I'm saying is that I am a person who I have experienced moments of intensity, and in moments of intensity where I am alone and I cannot rely on myself, that's where faith has meaning, right? It's as if like when the self doesn't know what to do, the self looks at the world and says, hey world, help me out, you know, I'm doing something here. So, as a sort of Christmas gift for the human species, whoever you are, your whole life you may have been trying to prepare for a known expected outcome. But for a moment, just consider that what if life is designed to be an unknown event? What if it's designed not to be understood from a limited perspective, but to be experienced from a limitless one? So this is what changed my mentality to life, where I was like, okay, the past is past, as sages have said. The present is just like here and now and deathless and eternal. So the only thing left to do is use the past and the present to work with the future. What I feel has happened in Civilization 1.0, and the reason the species has hit a stasis of advancement, is simply because we are trying to do something with a past system, not realizing we have to add new dimensions, right? One of the most complex things, let me say in the evolution, in the journey of an evolutionary animal, one of the most complex things to overcome. Physical environment, sure, the creature could just change location, go to a different environment, different context, different setting, different meaning. But when it comes to the nature of your mind, unless you decide, the universe is giving you a permission to choose your mind. This is something I didn't understand as this shy, like introverted fool when I was young. Okay? And just to save the hassle for all those people who are like behind their minds are moving faster than their bodies. Like that's what shyness is, really. You know. This is why, intellectual people are awkward. The mystery is no longer a mystery. They're awkward. Why? Because intellect is precision of the structure of what meaning is, right? The thing about knowledge is it's the precision of structure. So there's a debate which I recommend everybody to go watch. It's a debate between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris. And to me, that's like some people, they like to see the Super Bowl. For me, it's like this debate is my Super Bowl, So in this debate, I have this attitude that to me, knowledge is just how have human beings looked at the world so far, and what is innovation, what haven't human beings seen yet, right? And what people don't realize is, and this is what the media of the advertising, pretty much the marketing industry found in early cyberspace is doing, right? The media is giving an illusion that people are incomplete, so they need to complete themselves, right? And the less educated the mind, the more it's going to rely on external completion. The more educated the mind, the more conscious it realizes that free will is a force. There were times in my life where I acted as this helpless individual, as this helpless, like unlucky person. Okay, and I just stood in my misery, and I remember it was a time in my life where I felt like nothing. Like if somebody says, is it possible to feel like nothing? I'll be like, every day maybe people are experiencing this. And so I felt like nothing to a degree where I didn't even know what was alive. Right? Imagine like that's like truly like a philosopher's depression, right? Where the philosopher is seeing the depression on a macrocosmic scale, right? It's as if it's like I don't have the problem, the world does. There's this hilarious joke, right? There's this joke that this man turns on the radio, and in the radio, breaking news, there's an announcement, and in the announcement this anchor is saying that there's a crazy person driving in the highway, against all the other cars. Be careful, passengers, God bless us all, oh my God, something like this, right? And the person who's turned on the radio, he suddenly turns off the radio and he gets angry and he says, hey man, it's not one, it's 1,000 of them, and he was the guy going against everybody, right? The issue is that when inner realms get too powerful, that power becomes dehumanized, and it translates as savageness to the gentleness of the human mind, so that its karma becomes evil, right? That means, like when I think about the idea of like dictators in history, right? I think about a dictator like in external reality in front of my eyes, and I'm like, that's a fucked up idea, who let a devil inside, a political sanctuary. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a hidden nature to the moment, dear viewers. And so you most likely are a persona, a subjective persona, reacting to the story, which is the behavior of your environment. Like there was a time where I wanted to know what is the meaning of language, like where did language come from and where did cultural programming come from? I think this is something that like not a lot of people ask, but for me I was like, how am I like the way I am? It's like there's times where you look at the mirror and you're like, who is this looking in the mirror? So anyways, where I'm going with this is that I am on some level looking at it like a strategist, and I'm like, okay, consciousness that's found itself in an unknown world at a certain phase of history and evolution, what are you going to do? What sort of strategy are you going to select out of this all you can, choose infinite buffet of strategies? It's like, what strategy, consciousness in an unknown world would you choose? And so what the difference between tactics and strategy is that strategy is what the outcome, tactics is how the outcome comes about, right? So when we think about life, I'm this podcaster saying that the outcome of life is unknown. So the strategy of life is how do we enter the unknown, right? Which is the concept of death and the ending of life. It's like a candle with a light and the candle's melting and being like, what do I do at the end of this life? Like, what is here? What was the value of what I was while I was it, So anyways, the strategy is how should man prepare for the unknown, okay? Now the tactics to go about this is what I want to talk about. And for me, I'm noticing something strange. If I choose to value life and render my worldview in accordance to the past and present, I see a different type of self. And so what do I mean by this? I mean that when I think about my past and that ends up giving me an archetypal self, that archetypal self is so different than who I am in the present. You know what it is? It's like we're multiple moments of time in one moment of time. And so there's this a singular existential event happening, but there's this rhythmic dualistic experiential event happening, right? So we are this multidimensional process where only a tip of the iceberg is identifying itself as reality. Okay, there's a picture I'm going to show the viewers, whoever you are, just look at your desktop. This is something that Freud got into, right? So when Freud was talking about the mind, he saw the tip of the iceberg as the conscious mind. And then you have the preconscious mind, the unconscious mind. Some people call the preconscious the subconscious, but the preconscious is where daydreams, visualizations, and dreams happen, okay? So what it is that it's think of it this way: everything we know about life and existence is the tip of the iceberg. If somebody wants to find their past life or their future life, it's as if you're trying to find the future life of the tip of the iceberg. What is the true nature of the energy that is being the human experience? Okay. We have reached a point as a species where there is enough intelligence to discriminate between inner events and outer events. And let me tell you something that all those people who go in the path of Raja Yoga. So when it comes to yoga, there's so many different views on this, but certain schools of thought, they say that there's 4 types of yoga. Okay, there is Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion. This one's very important, but I'll talk about it more at the end. Then there is Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of work. And usually, the more foolish the person is, the more their salvation is based on something they have to do to deserve their future. So it's work-based, right? Their salvation is work-based. For those who are Bhakti yogis, their salvation is love-based. Their nirvana is love-based. For those who are Raja yogis, their nirvana is intellectual-based. It's understanding. That means you're a type of being, a class of being, a class of an advanced communicator where for you, your mind, it's as if imagine a being that has more experience being a mind than a body, ends up being in this world a being that its mind moves faster than its body. When your mind moves faster than your body, it's a suggestion that behind your eyes you're living ahead of your life, ahead of your body. Anyways, ultimately, the outcome is unknown. We're headed to an unknown place. It makes sense while we're alive to cultivate understanding of the unknown. Now, the educational system, the economical system, the societal structure, all of them want a specific type of person, right? For me, there was something that, I'll be honest, like I love women, but something that I don't know why it disappointed me just from women, right? For me, there's a saying that says, it's from this Eastern religious figure named Imam Ali, and he says, women are the mothers. It's like, here, let me find the quote. Imam Ali has this quote where he says, "Be respectful to women, for they are the mothers of mankind." Okay, and this is a view I personally just adopt. It makes perfect sense to me. But the thing that upset me is that I feel that it's as if, how deeply do you see? Like, you know what it is? It's as if sometimes I feel, if there was a sculpting contest, women would be way more advanced sculptors than men. This is my view. If there was if it was inner vision oriented, right? But the reason I'm saying this is because it's as if the mothers of mankind, it's as if the quality, it's as if, you see, it's like 8 billion creatures on a rock telling themselves a story, and based on what they hold valuable in the story, the whole societal structure aligns to. Okay? And so my biggest question, or biggest just wonder, that means I sometimes, I don't even take my own emotions seriously, and I look at this world and I ask myself, when will the advanced humanity, start building the advanced civilization? If somebody says, Mr. Within, have you prayed for an advanced civilization? It's like with a silent nod suffice. Anyways, what can I say? The value of mystical knowledge is that, okay, we're not in a known world. That because we're not in a known world and we're in an unknown world, we can't have a sort of system, a linear system that solidifies intelligence. To me, human beings, Albert Einstein has this incredible quote. He says, if you judge a fish by its ability to fly, that fish is going to think it's stupid its whole life. We're like something in these lines, right? So what does that mean? That means we're 8 billion human beings with 8 billion different DNAs, with 8 billion different views towards the earth, different angles of the earth. And why aren't these 8 billion angles being utilized to advance the collective system? For me, sometimes I look at good and evil people fighting and I'm like, man, it's like, first build the advanced world and advanced context, and then be good and evil in the advanced context. You see, the idea of advancement transcends duality. This is why the future will walk towards the advanced civilization, because we have been so unknowingly. Is the meaning of life preparing for the unknown? Life is an opportunity to perform. And this is something where, again, if I had a time machine and could go back to my foolish, shy self, I would say that, buddy, the life is designed to be a performance in every moment. You see, that nervousness a person feels on stage in front of millions of people speaking. Like, I remember when I first gave these Mr. Within talks, it was in Birmingham, UK. There were these benches that didn't have a backside, and they were just like these like table-looking benches. And beside it, there was this grass field. And I remember I started giving these Mr. Within talks at night, and I would walk on those benches as if they were a sort of podium, and I would treat the grass field as if each straw of grass was like an audience member seated on a chair, right? And I remember I would just give the talk out loud, right? For me, it's as if like, okay, in order of when I ask the question, what is the meaning of life for the human being, I gotta first look at what the human being is. When I wonder about what's the meaning of existence, existence is an energy. And when I wonder about what's the purpose of energy, whether I am using it or God is using it or the unknown is using it or whatever, the purpose of energy is for something for it to happen. That means ultimately we should not fear death, and we should have this attitude that we're just some energy, existential energy. And this existential energy can be coordinated, directed, and navigated and piloted by our attention, our experiential attention, right? So we can choose what happens to this existential energy. It's as if we're the part of Earth that can direct itself separate to how the Earth is directing everything, right? It's as if like Mother Earth, like let's say the Gaian mind or the spirit of nature was tired of just doing everything alone, and he's like, all right, human beings, you guys move yourselves, I'm gonna move everything else still, And so that's the thing, that's the rare opportunity. So whoever you are, regardless of whatever past you've had, regardless of whatever ethnocentrism you've been conditioned to accept reality through, okay, you are ultimately an attention that can wield energy. You're like, I'm not like an airbender, like the movie where I could just like raise my hand and like for water to lift up into the air. But because my body's made of 70% water, when I jump into the air, technically I've like bended air, like I've moved water into the air, like the airbender. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we're bending elements as ourselves, They asked the airbender, how can you move elements, bro? And the body's like, yo, because we are elements. We are what we move. And that's the poetry of how unknown it is to be a speaker talking about mystical concepts, because behind my eyes, I'm like, what is the value of words when life is an experiential event? There is something here there's something so beautiful in this world which desire cannot give. Whatever amount of desire, right? And some people sometimes wonder when they desire something too intensely, why is it that the karma is abrupt? And you know why? Because the universe is telling the individual person that you need to, if you were a simpler version of yourself, you would be worthy of the things that your current complexity does not authorize for you. This is the power of love. So what I'm trying to tell the viewers is that first you are a karma yogi and you're like, man, for how long should I work for my enlightenment? Then you realize it's not just about working